Hello students of T2. In this video I'm going to talk about, well, still Unit 2 nutrition, but more specifically about thinking about food. And no, I'm not referring to your thoughts or my thoughts, although I'm thinking about food now because I'm telling this and I'm looking at this. But this is the name of the basic 5. And in this video I want to give you some additional thought-provoking ideas maybe, so that you could think about it. Because we don't really look that much about food, and maybe you don't really think about it either. You just want it to be tasty, and that's fine, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. But I want to emphasize to you that food has a major impact on the world. They often say that money makes the world go round, but actually so does food. This is also because it involves a lot of money. And if we look at the carbon emission, well, the global greenhouse gas emission. So this is what is causing the Earth to warm up, to change the climate. You probably heard about that. And almost a quarter, 24%, is just because of agriculture. So because of the farming, and well, it's combined with the forest and other land use. But this is only because we do so much with food, and food has a huge impact on the global greenhouse gases, so on the warming of the climate and the planet. And I'm going to explain to you why and how. But first, I want you to understand how important agriculture, so farming, is in the world. Agriculture is really important for the Netherlands specifically. We are a very agriculture-driven economy. Well, let's make a ranking of the amount of money a country would make for selling its food. So if we have more supply than we actually need, we can sell some leftovers to other countries. Which country do you think ranks at the top? Think about it for yourself. Pause the video. And where would the Netherlands rank? We are a very tiny country, remember that. If we are going to look at the list, we see that the US is in first. But look at this, we are so small and we're already in second place. So that's pretty great for such a small country. Netherlands, woo! You can see that lady helping me cheer. Really good. We can be, well, at least a bit proud of it. That's really cool, right? How on earth can we make more money on food exports than, for example, China? That's crazy, right? China. We're only behind the US, but the US is like way bigger than we are. So this is actually a very difficult graph because we are looking at the export, so the food we are selling, not the food we are eating ourselves. So China produces a lot more food than we do, of course, but they have so many people that they eat a lot of their own food as well. And we make so much more food than we need, so we also sell a lot of food to other parts of the world. So this is why we are in second place. But that's some crazy statistics, right? If we even look at something really random like tomato sales per country, where would you think the Netherlands would rank then? Well, I'm not asking this question completely random, because why would you think I would ask tomatoes? Because, whoa, Netherlands! We are first? No, we are still in second. Can't we ever win? So we are behind Mexico. But look how crazy these numbers are. 24% of all the sell tomatoes to other countries, tomatoes as the British would say, 25% almost is Mexico and 22% is the Netherlands. So almost half of all the tomatoes sold worldwide are just by two countries, produced by two countries. Why is the Netherlands so good in producing tomatoes? Because there are quite some sun-reliant plants. They need a lot of sunlight. This is because we have two things. The first one is we have very good transport capabilities. We have the port of Rotterdam, of course, and we have a very good position in the world, very good road networks, but we also have a very capable agricultural methods. We have greenhouses actually in which we grow the tomatoes, so we can very precisely regulate the temperature, the amount of sun, and if there's not enough sun, we just put on the lights. We can regulate how moist it is inside of the greenhouse. So this is why our tomatoes grow very, very well. We have the money to actually build lots of structures around it. So that's really crazy, right? So even in tomatoes, we are really selling a lot. If we look at impact on the climate, well, as I told you, agriculture has a lot of impact on the climate as well. So if we rank so well in agriculture, food exports, we make so much money from farming, then we would have a major impact on the climate for such a small country, right? Woo, Netherlands! No, this is actually nothing to be happy about. We should actually be a bit sad. Yes, thank you, people. That lady is a bit too enthusiastic. So, well, maybe we should think about that as well. For just a bit. I mean, you can still enjoy your food, of course. But if we are going to look at the land use, bodemgebruik in Nederland, it's even in Dutch. Well, surprising. It's a Dutch graph. It feels a bit like geography now, right? Looking at maps. But what I want you to know and really think about is that look at this light green shade, agricultural terrain. So this is only land used for farming, for farms, for animals, for plants, everything we eat. So the tiny red dots on the map, the villages and the towns and the cities are all they all need all this land around it to grow all the food we eat. And okay, I just learned we also export a lot, so we make a lot of money out of it. So now you know why. Because look at what is actually forest or any nature at all. There is almost nothing left in the Netherlands. Everything you see, if you just ride with your bike around Nijmegen and the surroundings, we're not really into nature actually, because we have a artificial land made out of crops that we grow, and it's not really nature as in we left it to the wild. We produce more food than we need. That is true. So this is also why there is so much land. And, okay, last one about the figures. We export a lot. And here now we look. We rank in first. Yes, we can win, but this is a bit of cheating, because then I say the Netherlands is the EU's biggest agri-food exporter. So if we only look at Europe, yes, then we win, but we lose to the United States in sales. But we sell a lot of agricultural stuff, also materials and technology about how to farm well. The Netherlands is actually really good in it, and well, maybe you never thought of that, but that's cool to know, right? This is one of the main drivers of our economy, farming and producing food. We are good in that. If we look at the daily requirements, you already saw the video from my colleague, from Mrs. Ter Heert, and she talked about how we need calories to sustain ourselves and how much we should eat. And women usually need 2,000 calories a day and men 2,500. So if you take the average of that, we need around 2,250 calories a day. The book wants you to think in kilojoule, because a joule is the amount of energy required to heat up 1 cubic centimeters of water. So this is actually a very precise measurement, but well, we've always used calories and people are still using calories today, and well, it still sticks with us. So, but for the graphs, remember, we're looking at 9,000 kilojoule. That's what you would require on a daily basis. So if we look at what we actually take in energy around the world, it varies a lot between countries. Look at this 9,000, 10,000 kilojoule threshold. Somewhere around here is a healthy amount of food. And look at the Western world. We in Europe and in Australia, New Zealand, North America, we ate way too much in energy. So we eat more than we actually need. And who are we blaming because we are getting fat just because we just eat too much? It's actually that simple. Why would you eat too much then? Well, look at the picture appearing here below me. I think that's a good explanation. It looks so good, right? It's really easy to eat too much. Unfortunately, for some parts of the world, still we're living in 2020 and still there are some really poor countries who cannot just get the amount of food they need. There isn't enough. Even if you had the money, there is no food to just buy from the supermarket if you live in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, for example. So many of those people do not get enough calories a day. Weird, right, that it works like that. If we look at the average protein intake, it's even more shocking, because now the differences are really big. And especially here in Europe, we and in North America, and well, actually it's again the Western world, we eat a lot of protein, way too much more than we actually would need. Where does protein mainly come from? Maybe you remember that from my video on Basic 1, or what we talked about in Basic 3 in the Zoom lesson. You remember where we get our protein from? Well, some of you were really clever and they knew all of it, but mainly from animal sources like fish and meat. So in this graph you can also see that in the Western world we eat, well, pretty much a lot of meat and fish, a lot of animals actually, on animal products. If we look at families around the world, look at what they spend in a week. It's of course they don't really make that much money from their job, so it's not really like they have tons of leftover for other stuff. But this is what they would eat in an entire week with this entire family. It's not that much, right? And look, I don't see any meat around here, because meat is actually quite expensive to make. So this is why well, some people in some poorer countries do not really eat that much protein. Ecuador is somewhere around here, and you can see that it's not really that red. For the US, for example, which looks a bit like our diet, well, okay, maybe this family is not the most healthy family and not the best example, but well, the general trend is still there. In the Western world, we eat a lot of crisps, a lot of Coke, for example. So, well, a lot of meats as well. You can see that here. A lot of milk. And they spend so much more money on their food, but they also make more. In Japan, for example, they eat a lot of fish. Japan is actually really known for having a lot of very old people, so they must live a healthy life. So probably fish is really good for you. There are, of course, some very valuable nutrients in there, which could really help your body grow and sustain itself. Oh, it still says Japan, but it should be Italy. People from Italy, well, Italy is really obsessed about food. You probably know that from their culture. And kids learn a lot about food from a very young age already. And they also eat a pretty healthy, varied diet. A lot of vegetables, a lot of breads, especially in Italy. But also we in the Netherlands, we eat a lot of bread. But they eat all kinds of stuff, also like sodas. You can see it there. Well, so there's that. But meat has a bit of a problem because it has a huge impact on the climate. Let me tell you why. And this is not a talk about why you should stop eating meat, because I don't decide that for you and you don't have to. It's perfectly normal to eat meat because we are just brought up with that thought that we should eat that. And of course it does contain some nutrients that we actually need. But here's what we have to think about. Let me guide you through, because there are some problems with producing meat. Look, if we would just grow plants on a field, for example, we can use this weed to eventually make bread, and we can feed a person with it. From one field, you could probably feed a person. If you would have 3 fields full of wheat, then you can, of course, feed 3 persons. That's not really difficult, right? Let's assume you eat only meat for the entire week. Then we need not 3 fields, but we need 4 fields. How? Well, we need 1 field for the cows to be on, obviously. But the cows need to eat as well. So we have food which the cow eats, but then it's not really an adult yet, so it can still grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So we need to feed him another to feed him another field of wheat, and eventually another field of wheat. So we actually need 3 fields of wheat for the food for the cow before you can actually eat the cow itself. And we don't really eat all the parts of the cow. We only eat the muscle, so several parts of the cow. This is a problem. Also, if you look at how much water is needed to produce 1 kilogram of food, if you just want a tomato, this is crazy, right? you actually need 214. And this is actually in liters. There is so much water going inside of that plant. 214 liters just to get 1 kilo of tomato, because the plant evaporates a lot of water. It uses it for photosynthesis to get sugars, glucose and other stuff. It also produces leaves and other parts of the plant that we really don't eat. So we only use the tomatoes of the plant. So actually this is already quite, well, a lot. I'm already shocked by this. For just a kilo of tomatoes that we need 214 liters of water. But imagine that you would need to water all these plants to be food for the cow. And the cow itself also need water. So this is why you need so much water for beef. And especially cows, because they are so big. They need so much water. This is crazy, you know? You can eat, well, so much more tomatoes from this amount of water than just that 1 kilogram of beef. For pork it's less bad because, well, pigs are just smaller, so they don't really need that much food. And for chickens it's even better, but still is a lot. The same goes for cheese and eggs and milk, and unfortunately I wish it would be different, but all the products that are well, related to the animals, because, well, for cheese you need cows. So the cow is still living and it's giving off its cheese, but you produce a lot of cheese from that one cow. So therefore the cheese water usage is a bit less. But if meat is so bad for the climate and the environment and we need so much resources to obtain a bit of meat, why do we still eat meat then? Because now one person is happy with his food and 2 people are starving. So maybe if we look at it, not just the water, also the carbon emission. You can see the CO2 is also very bad in beef and cheese, of course, because you need cows to make the cheese eventually. It's better for pigs and even better for poultry, for birds, for chicken. But look at the vegetables. They don't really require that much water and they don't really emit too much CO2 because we don't really need that much land as well. You can have forest instead of fields of just our food. So a lot of people think about doing it differently. Those people are vegetarians and vegans. They don't want to eat meat anymore or animals. Well, hopefully you can understand why now. Of course you don't have to be a vegetarian or vegan yourself, but I want you to understand why other people would want it that way. Maybe you can see why now. Vegetarians do usually not want to kill any animals. A lot of those people think it's really sad for the animals, but you have seen the second reason now. It's also very it has a very bad impact on the environment. I myself am a vegetarian. Well, and I still live, right? I look alive. So you can actually survive without meat. Hopefully you learned that we have meat substitutes and we have some fake meat or fish which you can eat. But you can also obtain obtain enough proteins from only eating vegetables, and beans are particularly rich in proteins. There are some people who are saying, well, if you are still eating fish, you are not really a vegetarian because you're still killing animals. But some vegetarians think, well, you don't really need land to grow the fish in, and the fish still had a good life in a wild environment. They could live a normal life, and then suddenly, okay, they got killed and taken out of the water. But up until that point, they lived a good life. So some people call themselves vegetarians but still eat fish. Well, I'm not from the grammar police. There's not really a good straight line about that. Some people interpret it the way they want, and that's fine, you know. Some people are vegans and they say, well, you still need, even if you have eggs or milk or cheese, you still need animals for that, and that's still very sad. And not only that, well, you need to breed them in captivity and stuff. Milk cows, for example, well, we can't really use them. Milk cows don't give milk, So a lot of male cows are slaughtered at a very young age, and only the females grow up to become adults. So vegans are a bit more extreme than vegetarians. They don't want to buy any product at all derived from animals. So also no milk and no cheese. And this is also partly because of the environment, because milk and butter, for example, and cheese still has a big impact compared to just vegetables. So that's why. That's why those people do that. Really weird to think about all the money involved in food. So we have so much money, we have so much differences in cultures, and it's really unfair sometimes in the world. You can see that especially with energy intake and protein intake. Well, some stuff to think about. There's no right or wrong, but know that such a thing as food, we basically need it every day. So even in those small amounts per day, that accumulates to be huge amounts.